One, to creating dynamic Drupal websites using views and content types. My name is David Needham, and I'll be presenting today. I just wanted to let you know I've never used this before, but there's that Ask a Question link at the top. It's some new feature in Google Slides that I decided to play with today. So you can basically open up your phone or computer, go to that address, and then ask questions and vote on questions that other people have asked. And then at the end, when there's the question slide, I'll be able to look at the questions and publish them to the screen, so both you and the people in the recording in the future will be able to see what everyone asked. And for those of you who are in the future, who are not in this room right now, of course you cannot visit that link and ask questions because I'm not going to be monitoring that. But anyone can contact me on Twitter or email, and I'll have those in the next slide. So my name is David Needham. I am the Executive Director of Enjoy Creativity. We are a nonprofit organization that helps churches think creatively about communications, and a big majority of that is building them websites. Other aspects are things like live streaming or online giving or social media, things like that. You can, like I said, tweet me at David Needham or at Enjoy Creativity. I've been using Drupal for about I don't know how many years, lots of years. You can go to my Drupal.org profile to see. I don't remember anymore, but I've been using Drupal since right before Drupal 6 came out. So I've seen a couple new versions of Drupal be released, and I've seen the process it goes through. I was originally targeting this talk to be for Drupal 8, but the topics are relevant for just about any version of Drupal, so that works fine. I learned Drupal because someone took the time to teach me Drupal. I had a mentor I could talk to, I could ask questions to. When I got stuck, there was always someone I could turn to and kind of get their feedback on, like, oh yeah, don't use the photo gallery module, you have to use a view or whatnot. And so that was my learning process, and I found that it was a huge blessing because when I got stuck and when people outside of people not me got stuck and they didn't have a mentor, it became really, really difficult to find help. It's really frustrating when you don't have someone to talk to. So I'd encourage you while you're here to find a mentor. If you don't have someone, feel free to talk to me. I'd be happy to answer any questions and stay in touch after the talk. But today we're going to be talking about dynamic websites. Here is an example. It's a website we created for a client, and this is just the front page. This front page is made up almost entirely of dynamic content. So right here at the very top we have that slideshow. So the slideshow is a rotating, it's a view that has various content can be published into the slideshow, and it's put there. We have the latest sermon here, and we have the title of the view, we have the description, we have the title of the content, and then we have the date that it was published on. We have the announcements section here, which is another view that shows a list of recent announcements that have been published on the site. And then we also have a list of volunteer opportunities here. These are all dynamic. The person maintaining this website does not have to go to the front page and edit this block every time. Every time there's a new volunteer opportunity, they don't have to go to the Get Involved section here and type it there, and then go to the Get Involved page and edit it there, and go to the other page and edit it there. It's all dynamic, so all they have to do is create content, and it automatically flows throughout the entire website wherever it needs to go. And this is really one of the biggest competitive advantages that Drupal has over some of the other content management systems. That your ability to create data structures using content types and to be able to display the results of that using views is just a really, really, really huge feature. And so the secret sauce, the sort of secret ingredient or the recipe to create dynamic content is really this. You add a content type. You add some fields to the content type that will get the data that people want to see entered into the website. You add some content, partly to make sure that the content you're adding is the content that you want to get, to make sure it's working the way you expect it to. And then also to help when you're creating the views in the last section here. It's really hard to create a view that's a list of content if you don't have any content to look at. So by creating content in the third step, you're able to then jump straight into and start creating the view. And we'll talk a little bit more about those. So if you're looking at this page again here, so for each one of these sections, for the announcements, there's the article content type. Maybe there's two content types. If it's a mix of events and articles or something, then that gets posted there in a view. And then we created a content type for volunteer opportunities, and then we added fields, and we added content, and then we created a view. Just for each one of these dynamic pieces of content, it's the same steps over and over and over again. So I'm defining a content type in this case. It's a Drupal terminology, but basically a content type is a data structure that defines a group of related fields for use and reuse throughout your entire website. So you're essentially creating a grouping of fields so that people can then enter content and have it stored in the database and then be able to be regurgitated throughout the site. But you can use and reuse these fields from content type to content type. You don't have to define them just for that one. And I went ahead and defined a field as well. A field just allows a user to add data to one or more content types using validation and formatting. And this is really key because when you go to add new content or you go to add a new field, you have a lot of options to choose from, especially in Drupal 8. Whether you want a text field or a text area or a text list, or a number that's an integer or a round or whatever. You have a lot of options to choose from, and sometimes, Drupal 8 does a little bit better job of this in that you can just say, I want a text list, and so you choose text list from the box. And it's not until later, later in the stage where you get to say, well, does this need to be a list that is a bulleted list, or I'm sorry, like a radio button, or does it need to be a select list with a drop down? Should people be able to select more than one item in the list, or should they only be required to choose one? And then validation is also key. Using the right fields for things like phone number or address or email or link or whatnot. You can enforce validation to ensure that the content you're entering into the site is the content you're expecting. And so here's some examples. So let's just say, for example, we have these content types here. We have a basic page, an article, an event, and a project, if you're doing a portfolio. The body field is probably going to exist on just about all of these content types. For the page, you need a place to put most of the content. The article. For the event, you want a description for the event, and the project, you have a project description. Similarly, the image, you probably want images on almost all of these. You want them on the basic page to be able to intersperse images throughout your page that you're creating. In your article, you probably want at least some sort of a featured image, so that when it's promoted to the front page or promoted, who knows where, you have that featured image that's there. Or when it's shared on social media, so you have that featured image that's there. Same for events. You want to have a place to have a featured image. In the project, you want to be able to show off your portfolio, and if you have your website or a graphic design thing, you want to be able to show it off with an image. The next one here, we have a date. Now, the date field probably doesn't make a lot of sense for the basic page. Probably doesn't make a lot of sense for the article. But an event field or an event content type would be pretty useless without a date field. So we definitely want it there. And then we also want a date field on our project. So we can say, when the project was completed or something like that. And then we have a category. So, there are use cases where maybe you want a category on some of the other ones too. But in this case, we're saying, well, let's just put the category on the project. So you can say, well, this is graphic design, this is a website, this is a logo, whatever you want. And so even though these fields are being created, you might even create these fields on a content type, you're able to reuse them over and over and on the different content types, so that if you have a field that is that has certain validation or certain requirements, you can kind of copy those over from one content type to the other, so you don't have to create it from scratch every time. So I'm also talking a little bit about views today. I don't go into depth describing how to build a website, or how to build a view, or how to construct those, but there is a session I'll talk about that is happening tomorrow that goes into depth talking about views. I'm just defining views as a query builder that dynamically shows relevant or contextual content. And at its core, Views is really just a query builder. If you are a coder and you know MySQL code and you create a query, that's basically what Views is doing for you in the UI. So as you're defining, I want to filter by articles, I want to sort by this, I want to get author information so I can show their photo or their whatever. You're doing a join and you're doing all those different things that you'd be doing writing MySQL code, but Views does that for you. And then it typically will show things that are relevant or contextual, meaning, like, say you have an article, you're viewing an article, and you want to see things that are related to that article. Maybe things that are in that are a related topic, or other articles by this author, or something like that. And that's where you would go into Views and you'd say, using a contextual filter, show me only articles that are by the same author, or something like that. Similar to Views, within Views you can create displays. A display basically defines the output of a format, the output format of the content filtered in the view. So once you have a query that is defining what content you want to see, the display defines how you want to see it. Do you want it to be a block that lives in the sidebar? Do you want it to be a page that has a full-blown URL and a menu link? Do you want to see a slideshow that shows up somewhere? Do you want an XML feed that goes external, an iTunes podcast, for example? It goes out somewhere else. These are all defined in the display. So as you're going through and creating your views, you might have one view for articles, but you might have several displays within it that says, I have a list of articles. I want a display that shows on the articles page, that is just a list of all the articles. And then I want a block, maybe on the front page, that has the most recent articles, the 5 most recent. And then maybe I'll have another block that says, here are the articles by the author that wrote the article. And you can just create as many displays as you want that sort of takes the default set of data and augments it or shows it in slightly different ways. So basically, a view asks you what you want, and the display asks you how you want it. Any questions about this so far, this concept?
I couldn't get the slide thing to work.
Oh, the questions?
Asking for permission.
Oh.
Must be a
1 second.
permission.
I see. Okay. Try again. Cool. Okay, so the slides, the questions link is now working, right? Okay. So looking back at this list again, let's think about creating dynamic articles. Your website may or may not come with an article content type already. So create an article content type, or it might already exist, so you don't have to create it. Think about what fields you want to add in it. So in our previous example with the lines, we said we wanted a body field in the image. If you're using the paragraphs module, which I'll be talking about tomorrow, you might add a paragraph field instead of a body field. Or if you have, if you're expecting that you're going to have things like video or other sorts of media, maybe you have additional fields that are listed in there. And then you add content. Like I said, it's important that you add content and kind of make sure that you're adding the content in a way that so that your content type and fields are working appropriately. Then you start to add some views. So here's one view that we created. It's a news view. In this case, we're looking at a display for recent news, and this is a page. Maybe it is at /articles. Maybe there's a menu link in the top menu called articles, or recent news or whatever, and it shows up there. And so we're displaying here a list of all of our news content with the graphic, the image that we have on there, the title, and the body field, the text area that we have on our article content. And in this case, we have 3. Maybe you have more. Maybe it keeps going down. Maybe you have a pager at the bottom where you can go to page 1, 2, 3, 4 and show more content. It just depends. It's all configuration you can do within the view. And this is great. This is a good start. But let's say we wanted to see something, the same articles, but in a slightly different format. So in this case, we have other articles by this author. Instead of being a full-blown page that shows all of the articles, maybe this also has, it's a slightly different format, so you can see sort of a list below the blog post or something like that. And we only see a couple, but it's set to, this particular one is set to be a block, so it's going to appear in the region instead of it being a full-blown page with a URL. And then it might have a contextual link on it to say, look at the author of the current node, the current article that I'm reading, and only show me articles by that particular person. And so that's what it does. And so it's formatting in a slightly different way. There's a little theming here, maybe to float the image left or the text right, or kind of getting to sit next to each other. But it's basically the same content. If we flip back, it's the same content that we saw here. It's just a slightly different list of content, and instead of being a full-blown page, it's a block. So it's sort of supplementary to the page that we're currently viewing. So if we look at another example, events, then Drupal doesn't come out of the box with an event content type, so we probably have to create one of those. We have to add fields to our event content type for things like the body field, the date field, the image. You can also get into some configuration for those, like for the date field, you can say, should it be repeating? Should you let people be able to choose if the event is repeating, every week? Or should it have an end date? Should there be a time, or should it just be a date field? Those are all things you can choose from. Currently in Drupal 8, I believe the date field made it into core in Drupal 8, so if you just install Drupal, the date field will be there. But it's missing some of the functionality that I really liked about the date field, including repeating dates and end dates. So right now, I don't know that there is an additional module you can download, but according to the issue queue, they're working on either creating a new one or getting the old functionality built in too. But so for now, if you need repeating dates, you probably just have to wait or use an older version of Drupal, unfortunately. And then once you have the content type in the field set up, you add some content, and then you build the view. So let's take a look at the view. So we added a event view that shows all the event content on our site. And in this case, we told it that we wanted to see the title, the body, and the date. And in this case, we have formatted this so that we have a nice little date display. More than likely, to get this to theme correctly, we might actually have two date fields, or we might be showing the same date field twice. We might show the date field once for the month, so that it's wrapped in a div and kind of right there, so you can style it like this. And then we have the date field again, where it's just a day, so we can kind of align them and theme it correctly. In this case, we're showing two events in a list, kind of like this. That works okay for some people. Other people prefer to see a calendar. So there's the calendar module, and there's the full calendar module. Those will both integrate with views, so you can generate day, week, month, and year displays of calendars. So in this case, it's the same content response we saw before, but we're seeing like the 14th and the 27th is highlighted in a different way. So same view, different display. And here's yet another one. So instead of it's the same content we saw before, it's a totally different display, same view because it's the same content. And we're seeing the relevant content on the page. Okay, so we also have slide content we talked about. In this case, it's up to you to think about and to plan how you expect people to use your website and how you think the slideshow should work. There are lots and lots of options for thinking about, should people be able to promote existing content to the slideshow, or should they create a new piece of slide content that refers to other content on the site? Whenever we build new websites, we ask questions to our clients. We have to kind of answer that question for them sometimes. Lately, the most user-friendly or sort of most intuitive method is to actually add appropriate fields for slides on the content types that we're already using. So instead of creating a whole different content type for slides, for things that go to the front page slideshow, maybe we'll add a slide field to our content types. That is just, if if someone clicks the button to promote to the front page, or if they maybe even add an extra checkbox that says promote this to the front page, if they check that box, show the slide field so that they can upload a slide. If you're using an image crop module, maybe it also lets them click a button to then crop the image so it fits perfectly in the space that's provided. So if you're doing that, in this case, maybe you don't have to add any content type. Maybe you can just say, we want all of our basic pages, our articles, our events, all of those things can be promoted to the front page slideshow. We don't have to create a new one. Same thing for fields. If your fields are very simple, if it's already set up so your featured image could be used as slides, then maybe that's okay. Maybe you add an additional field for the slideshow. And then you start adding content, or use the existing content. You start promoting things in that way. You add the checkbox, and you add the slide field, and you start seeing how it works. And then you still go in and add the view. So there are several view plugins you can get that will generate slideshows for you, or that will render a list in a slideshow format. There is View Slideshow is kind of the old standard for a long time, and then Flex Slider is sort of become the new standard. They should all be accessible, so that they should have important things in there for the talk we were just talking about, so that people can view the alt tags, and so that they can actually click the links if they need to from a screen reader. Also, they need to be mobile friendly. You want a slideshow that's going to scale appropriately down to mobile devices. If you're using the breakpoints module, you can actually load images that are automatically the right size, so it's not just scaling this huge image down. It's actually reloading with a properly sized small image so that it loads much more quickly. And then also, on mobile, it's important you should be able to swipe through the slideshow, and those are things that the Flex Slider module will give you. But so here's another article. This is the same article, news content that we showed earlier, but we uploaded another featured image, and it's promoted to the front page slideshow. We have the left and right, buttons to flip through the slides, and then we have the thing at the bottom to show you exactly where you're at in the slides. Then here's another one. This is actually the same display as the other one, but you can add any number of content you want to it. You can add, in this case, we're adding an event and an article in the same view. You can also add additional fields for things like, in this case, we're showing the date of the event in addition to the event title, so it can appear right there inline. You should also think about things like they said in the presentation about contrast. Obviously, this is not the greatest contrast ratio. You can't always know what's going to be when your text is on top of the graphic. So having sometimes a separate place at the bottom, or an opaque background behind it can help. There's also some where maybe you have a more narrow slide graphic, but next to it you have the text and stuff. And you guys have probably all seen this before. It's probably already seen slideshows, but they're extremely easy to create in Drupal. You don't need a lot of you don't need really any custom code. You can just install the modules and do it right out of the box. So again, just to recap this part here, this is the same pattern for all of the content we've created today so far. It's the same pattern. You add a content type, add fields, you add content to the content type, and then you add views and displays and place them throughout your site. By doing this, you're able to get that sort of dynamic feeling of your website where you don't have to be responsible for jumping around your site and editing content all over the place. You just add content, you edit content through the admin interface, and it just automatically flows where it needs to go. So if we take all of these examples that we just looked at, all of the ones where the events and the articles and the slideshow, we could get something that looks a little bit like this. This is just a quick example where we have the slideshow at the top, we have these news items here, we have upcoming events on the side, and this is all views. Again, there's no static content on this front page. It's all dynamic, changing, updating automatically whenever we add new content. And so far, it seems like this sort of a way of doing it makes it a lot easier for people who are non-technical to approach. When it's easy to say, if you want to change, this new blog post, just go to the page for the new blog post, click the edit link, change the text however you want. If you're using the newest version of Drupal, Maybe you can even edit it inline. Sometimes you can edit it inline directly in here too. And it just makes the interface a lot easier to use. And then it's important to also think about, because of these relationships, because of how you're structuring this, it's important to plan this as much in advance. Before you jump in and create a content type, and before you add fields, and before you add views, grab a piece of paper, or grab an Excel spreadsheet or something like that. Start sketching out, these are the content types we think we need. Here are the fields that would make it so we're adding the content that's appropriate. Start thinking about relationships between the two. If you're creating a portfolio website, maybe you have a content type for the clients. Maybe you have another content type for the projects. Maybe you have a field on the project content type that relates back to the client and shows their logo on the page for the project, or something like that. These are all things that are at your disposal just by kind of following these steps. And then there are a few complimentary sessions here at the camp. There's Mastering Drupal 8 Views tomorrow at 9:45 a.m. I was actually expecting that one would be before this session. I expected that anyone coming here today would have already went through the sort of beginner views and kind of understand that. So I apologize if you're caught a little bit off guard about what's a view and how do I set it up. Hopefully those things should be answered in that presentation. There's also another one right after this one called Taxonomy Inside and Outside of Drupal. I didn't really talk about taxonomy, but it's that system of categorization. It lets you do things like add tags or categories to your content, and then maintains it sort of outside of the content type, so that people can add categories as needed. And then using paragraphs. Tomorrow myself and Les Lim will be talking at 1 p.m. about the paragraphs module. The paragraphs module, it seems a little bit complicated on the surface, but it's a way of replacing the body field so that you can mix media on your page and construct it in a way. So like instead of the body field is typically a mismatch of text, graphics, videos, embeds, iframes, and whatever. It's all kind of put in the body field, by default. The paragraphs module basically does away with the body field. Or at least the way we're using it does away with the body field. It makes it so you can add, say, I want to add 2 columns. It makes 2 columns. And you say, I want to put in the left one a image and a text field. And then the other one, I want to see a view that's a list of recent articles. And then below that, I want an embedded video. And below that, I want whatever. And it keeps each of these in separate fields so that it's XML friendly. It's something you can send out to mobile apps or whatever. It creates predictable code so you can theme it better for mobile. But yeah, these would all be very complimentary sessions for today, or for the camp. And then we also there's a few other announcements that are important. There's sprinting happening on Sunday. Like they said in the presentation, if you're here bright and early in the morning, sprinting is for everyone. It's not just for people who know how to code or people who know Drupal. If anything, it's more valuable to have people who don't know Drupal or don't know code there, because those of us who have done coding in Drupal are a little bit broken, or our opinion is skewed in that we don't see the problems anymore. We kind of have the rose-colored glasses. We've drunk the Kool-Aid. Drupal is awesome. We don't know why anyone wouldn't use it. So having someone there who doesn't have that is huge, because it lets us fix problems that otherwise we just couldn't see. And then also, the slides will be published. I'll post it on the session link later also, but it'll all be online. Cool. So I see we have a few questions. Let me jump to that. Okay, here's a good question. What are some pros and cons about putting views in blocks versus panels? That's a great question. I didn't talk at all about the panels module today, but it acts a little bit like it lets you create Drupal itself gives you regions. So you can have left sidebar, right sidebar, header, footer, content. The panels module lets you say things like, well, in that content region, I want to choose a layout, so it's another header, footer, 2 sidebars on the left, or 4 columns, or whatever, and then add content and build the page out that way. I think it depends on your use case. I worked for a company called Chapter 3 several years ago, and they were a really, really heavy panel shop. So we, whenever a problem came to us that we could solve with panels, building out, constructing a page, we always used panels. There wasn't really any other way for us, that we wanted to do it. Since I left Chapter 3, it seems like panels, for me at least, has been a little bit overkill. I've been using modules like Display Suite to have greater display over, or greater control over where content shows up on the page. Saying I want this field to appear in the left sidebar, I want this other field to appear, in 2 columns in the main area. But this kind of overlaps a little bit with the paragraphs module too, where you can control some of those things. So, the thing about Drupal is that there's multiple ways to do exactly the same thing. And sometimes it requires you to go through and try one method, and if it doesn't work with you or with your use case, to scrap it and try again. And this is another great case where having a mentor to talk it through with is really important. But yeah, if you're using panels, you can absolutely create views in panels too. You can create a panel pane where you can just put a view anywhere you want in the panel. But it also pulls in blocks, so you don't have to choose. It doesn't really matter as much if you're choosing a block or a content pane. They both go into the view or in the panel. Yes, question?
How does the panels work with responsive websites? You can expand.
Good question. The question was how does panels deal with responsive websites? It deals with it as well as you are coding for the theme. It relies on you to define a layout that is responsive. The layouts, the where the columns are and things like that is a template, like in the theme, or in this case it's in the module. And if you have a layout that's responsive, it'll be responsive. All right, let's look at another question. All right, can views integrate and show parts of a form based on the role or capabilities of the user? Yes, absolutely. Within the view, when you're creating it, you can choose specific, or for each display even, you can choose who's able to see the view or the display. So you can say, on this particular display, maybe it's for admin only. It's content that's in moderation. You haven't published it yet, so only the admins can see it. And then in another area, maybe you have a welcome. Hey, you're not logged in. You might like these new articles or these really popular articles that we published to the site. And you could say only show that to anonymous people, people who are not logged into the website. So that's absolutely something you can do.
Okay, but that was my question.
Yeah.
Does this also work on the backend?
Yeah. In Drupal 8, I think they should all of the dynamic lists, all of the list of everything not everything, of all of the list of content or entities in Drupal 8 should be views. They should be generated with views. So there should be ways to, back end, front end, whatever, you can create a view and use it for anything you need to. All right, another question. How do you use the current page the block is on as a filter for the view? Yeah, so the only articles in the author I'm currently reading example. That's a great question too. So in Drupal, in views, it's referred to as a contextual filter. Views lets you choose filters, which are just, what content type is it? And then it lets you choose contextual filters, which can be based on a lot of things. The easiest is based on the current page I'm looking at, or based on the current user that's viewing this block, filter the list by something else. So it'd be really easy to say, show me all of my articles. Show me the articles that I've written on the website in a block, or show me the articles for the page I'm currently reading. If articles have categories, or like the portfolio project I mentioned earlier, example. If you want to see, maybe you're viewing the project and you want to see other projects in the logo category. It'd be really easy to do. You just add a contextual filter it by that taxonomy term, that field, and it will show you all other content that has that same field. Okay. Another question. The question is, how do I like this Google Slides Q&A tool? It's a great question. I've never, it kind of forces me to use the presenter display, which I'm not usually, it's not something I use, so I've been looking up at the screen a lot because it's a tiny little thing. But in general, I always like to get questions, and we don't have like a microphone, so it doesn't pick up very well on the recording. So I appreciate it in this area. I appreciate that I can just pop it on the screen. People who are viewing this later in the future can see the question and read it, and so in that aspect, I think it works really well. Okay, any other questions that that haven't been addressed on the slides?
You keep saying that these are recorded. I'm just curious how this is being recorded. How is
it being recorded? That's kind of a meta question, but that's okay. It's this magic box I'm pointing at right now. It takes all of the input, so there's a voice recorder here, and the screen goes through here, and it pops it out into the projector. So it's capturing all of it in the box, and then they take it to the computers, download the data, and upload it on YouTube, I think. All right. So I hope you all enjoyed the presentation today. I'll be around. We're a little bit early, so I'll stick around. Come ask me questions if you have any. I love to think about scenarios like the examples I gave. So if you have something you're trying to do, I'd love to talk about it and kind of brainstorm with you for a moment. So thank you all very much.